You are listening to STR, the Sunday Times Radio. Culture, music, and beyond.
My name is Najib. I'm one of the owners of One Life Kitchen and Café, which you can find in Dubai Design District, JVC, and soon, right here where we're recording this, in Alserkal Avenue. And I'm here for the Sunday Times radio station podcast.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We are very pleased to have you here today. Can we start a bit of your story? How have you arrived to Dubai? Were you born here? How you joined the hospitality industry?
Sure. So it's a bit of a long story because it starts in 82 when I was born. So my parents moved here in 1981. And my mom just went back to Turkey, where we're from, to give birth to me. Otherwise, I've basically been here pretty much since I was born. I grew up around the Gulf, so I grew up around Dubai, then lived in Abu Dhabi, then Muscat, then back to Dubai. And when I was 14, I moved to the UK. I went to boarding school for 4 years and then university for 5 years, where I did an undergrad in mechanical engineering, and a master's in business. Came back to Dubai, so I stayed 9 years in the UK. Was desperate to leave. I'm not sure why at this point, at that time, it was just, after 9 years, I felt like it was enough and I missed Dubai. So I came back to Dubai in 2005, worked in kind of corporate marketing. Well, first I worked on the Dubai Metro project. So I put my engineering degree to a bit of use. I worked on the Dubai Metro project before the metro was built, so the first line. Then I left that to join Unilever. I worked in marketing there for a while. And then I moved to Johnson & Johnson, where I met my wife. And then I moved to a German pharmaceutical company. And the story of my life is 9 years. So I did 9 years in England, then I did 9 years in corporate. And I was pretty desperate again to get out of that world. I'm not the type of guy who can sit behind a computer for 10 hours a day. And I had these kind of dreams of starting a business. When I left my last job that was 2014, I noticed that most of my business ideas were around food. Some were around football. I really wanted to do a indoor football pitch with my brother, which we had kind of initially started the plans for. It was called the Colosseum, and the tagline was "Live life, play football." Whatever, we had a logo and all this stuff, but that didn't happen. But I wanted to start a vending machine business for lack of a better word, healthy snacks. So salads and healthy snacks sold through vending machines. In order to do that, I needed a catering company to kind of fulfill the actual orders of what we were doing. I went to a couple and it didn't work out. I mean, what they wanted to charge us was a bit higher than, it didn't leave us enough margin. So the idea kind of pivoted into, let's do our own kitchen that will supply our own vending machines. Like a small kitchen that can supply 1 or 2 or 3 vending
dark
machines.
Kitchen, yeah?
Yeah, like a dark kitchen. I mean, I don't know if that phrase is old or new,
No,
but I don't
it's
think
quite
that,
new.
yeah, that phrase didn't exist. So then I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do a small kitchen, let's put a couple of tables. And we were looking for a small space to do that in, or I was looking for a small space to do that in. At this point, it's just, me on my own trying to kind of figure out what I want to do. And I think I was kind of close to finding a place when I got a call from an agent for Dubai Design District with whom I had kind of made contact maybe 3-6 months earlier. Hadn't heard back from them. It looked like a really cool project, but they hadn't got back to me. And at that point, the idea had evolved a little bit. It was still vending machines, but the name had changed. So originally the name was Tubs. So it was literally tubs of, for example, salad with different layers in it. And the idea changed from that to One Life. And One Life was more of a cafe, which was still going to do the vending machines, but, eventually it didn't. I mean, long story short, that never happened. But when I had the idea of One Life in my head, and the first time I went to D3, it kind of just clicked. Like it felt like, okay, what they're trying to do here and what I'm trying to do with One Life are kind of like very in sync, and it kind of fits. Like the brand that I'm trying to create fits very much with the idea of a design district where you've got young people who are mostly working in the design field coming to have lunch or whatever. And so we took quite a small space. I mean, the space you see now is not the original One Life. I mean, it's in the same location as the original One Life, but the original One Life was only the side that faces the car park.
Okay.
And met Calvin Kelly, who's our head chef and partner, quite early on. I think he was the first person I met. So he was the second person who joined One Life. So it was just me and him. Apart from, obviously speaking to my brother and my wife, who they're also my partners. So bouncing ideas and stuff. But Calvin and I were the first two people that were working together. And we started it. I think there are 5 of us. 3 of us are still in the business. So it's myself, Calvin, Sammy, who started off as a dishwasher, but now he's the head chef of our JVC branch, and 2 other people who left us along the kind of 9-10 year journey. Then there's obviously a lot that happened. So that is up to about 9 years ago. So now that I'm saying that, maybe I'm coming to the end of this 9-year cycle, but maybe the difference is I don't want to get out of it.
Okay, why did you call it One Life?
When I'd left my job to do this, so I left, and for a period of time, I was just working on this on my own, and working on it mainly meaning like business planning. I wouldn't say it was a tough time. It was a good time. I had my first son, so I'd have time to like pick him up from nursery and spend time with him. And to be honest with you, I wasn't working like 8, 9, 10 hours a day on business planning. I was working a couple of hours a day trying to develop the idea, trying to kind of talk to people, email people. It's kind of like when you're looking for a job. You don't look 10 hours a day for a job. You look like a couple of hours a day for a job, and then the rest of the time you're chilling. But I did, even though it was a good time, I did feel a sense of kind of, what am I doing? I'm 33 at that point, or 32 or 33. I'm like 32. I'm 32. I've quit my job. I have a son, and I'm trying to do this thing, which I have no experience in. I have no experience in hospitality. I have no experience in food. So I was pretty full of self-doubt, thinking like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then I was just driving home one day. I remember exactly where I was. And there was a song on, I won't say on the radio, because I don't actually listen to the radio that much. I listen to like albums and stuff. So it was a Jay-Z lyric in a song where he said, notice you get one life to live. You don't get no sequel. I've got to live this truly as if it's my last movie. And for some reason, that line of like, you don't get another sequel and you've got to live this truly as if it's your last movie, it just spoke to me. It was kind of like, look, you're someone who's trying to do something that you feel passionate about, and you can succeed or you can fail, but at least you'll try. You can try to succeed, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, I would at that point feel like, well, I have no regrets because I tried, and then maybe I'd go back to the corporate world, and it wouldn't be a question mark for me. So that was kind of where One Life came from.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'm not sure if you saw all these memes about P. Diddy, but right now I want to say let's thank you, Beyonce.
Oh yes. I'm not sure. What was Beyonce's?
It's like because of this P. Diddy thing, everyone says that Beyonce is killing everyone who is trying to steal Grammy from her. That's why you need to thank Beyonce for everything in your life. But I'm pretty sure it's crap. But anyway, what was the industry like 10 years ago?
I don't particularly feel obviously I'm in the industry. I don't particularly feel like I know it. I go to places that I like, which are very kind of basic places in general. But I think it was divided between fast food and fine dining more than today. So that segment in the middle, which you could call casual dining, was less prevalent. 10, 15 years ago. I mean, 20 years ago, definitely. So there was a time in Dubai where, pizza meant American fast food chain. Burger
Yeah.
meant American fast food chain. And then you had five-star hotels. Licensed places were five-star hotels or four. I mean, actually, it doesn't matter how many stars, but hotels. And then burgers, pizza, casual food was fast food. And that middle segment, I feel, really exploded in the last 10, 15 years. Now, I don't have any data to back up what I'm saying, but I'm saying from a consumer perspective, that's how it looks to me.
The first time I was in Dubai, it was 2009. I remember I lived in Dubai Marina in Haptur Hotel. But yeah, I do remember that you had like two choices, Starbucks or shawarma,
Yeah.
or stay in a five-star hotel and have a rebuy with black caviar. That's
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
your options. Okay, and D3, how old is it actually? It was like just built, yeah?
Yeah, so I think D3 is probably 2013, 14, 15, somewhere around there. We were the first restaurant there, along with another restaurant called Craft Cafe. We opened the same week. And yeah, like before that, they had kind of food trucks, pop-ups, but not a permanent restaurant space.
What was it like 10 years ago? Was it like this fashion stylish mecca like right now or no?
I mean, it kind of was, but it was just fewer people. Like right now, there's a lot more people. It's more on the map. But it was the same vibe, but just fewer people. From our point of view, I'm sure it changed a lot. Maybe we notice it less because we're kind of seeing it every day. I'm there, 5 or 6 days a week. So we notice the changes less. It's definitely changed. I think in terms of the vibe, I don't feel it's changed that much. I think it's kind of the same vibe. A lot more options for people who work there, people who visit there. I mean, there was a point where you had 2 options. Then there was a point where you had like 5 options in terms of food and beverage. Now, I mean, I haven't counted recently, but it's probably closer to 20 options.
I don't want anyone to be hating me, but I think you're the one who has this community thing, because this hospitality podcast, we want to dedicate it to the places which can influence the crowd, which can gather people around, and it becomes like a platform, community platform, where people meet each other and they talk and they stay there. And every time when I come to One Life, I see the same people. With friends, with family, with colleagues. They go there in the evening to have some wine. They go there in the afternoon to have lunch with their colleagues. And why do you think One Life has this community thing? Why people are going back and uniting there?
I mean, look, I think every space or brand or design, it speaks to a certain type of person. And I think, like I said in the very beginning, when we went to D3 to see what it was like, I knew what the concept for One Life was at that time, and I felt like it fit there quite well. And I still think that today. Like, I still think in terms of the food we offer, in terms of the type of decor, which has changed a lot because we rebuilt it in 2019, because we expanded from a smaller shop to a bigger shop. But I think a lot of those things are built for that space. It's not a brand that's kind of born somewhere else and imported into D3. Having said that, like, I do think there's several other spaces in D3 that have their community, and One Life wouldn't be everyone's favorite space in D3. It just depends like what your vibe is and what kind of design or space appeals to you. I also don't know what else is going on that much in D3 because I spent like 99% of my time in One Life. But in general, I'd say it's inviting, it's not exclusive. I mean, we purposely, from the beginning, felt like there's so much exclusive spaces in Dubai that we said, why is no one inclusive? It's a place where if you're wearing shorts, it's fine. If you're, doesn't matter kind of who you are, like, you'll be welcomed. And internally, like, that's always what we worked on. We worked on people feeling welcome, and not only welcome to come and visit us, but welcome to give us negative feedback, positive feedback, make suggestions for the menu. And I think I still think today that is somewhat rare in Dubai. I think in
Totally
other
agree.
parts of the world, you have, I mean, also it's owner managed. So Kelvin is an owner, he's there, 5, 6 days a week. I'm an owner, I'm there 5, 6 days a week. So from a consumer perspective, you can give feedback directly to me or him. And I think people care about that. I think people do feel like that's hopefully a place where they feel comfortable.
I totally agree, and I also believe there are not so many easygoing venues where you don't have to pretend, you don't have to worry about the dress code, yeah, about your mood, whatever. And even if we remember our Farley brothers, like why they're one of the best right now in Dubai, I believe that's because of the way the brothers are handling the space.
Yeah.
Because they're always there, they talk to the guest, and it's very friendly. And I think this type of service it's missed here because in Europe you usually have this kind of service when if they don't spit in your food that's very good, thank you.
Okay.
But we have here fine dining places. It's not bad, good, amazing, we need them sometimes. Actually, like these special fine dining places, it's something you want to go there maybe once in a month.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, obviously, like I said, every place plays a role in the consumer's life. And we call ourselves, everyday food, everyday people. And that's how it feels. It's like maybe not necessarily the place you're going to propose to your girlfriend, but it's a place where you can come every day. It's casual. It's just super casual. And I think that's kind of what we bring to the market. In terms of having owners in the restaurant, I do feel like you gave Orpha Bros as an example, and they're obviously much closer to fine dining than we are. It still makes a massive difference. I mean, it's still having skin in the game makes a huge difference to the way a place is run. And those guys also, obviously, they have skin in the game. Their name is on the door. It makes a big difference. My kind of belief in our sector is that it's really hard to do from a distance. I'm not saying like no one does it or no one does it well, but I'm saying even for me, being in the spaces as often as I am, it's very challenging to set a service standard that you want. Any standard that you want is difficult. And I used to think before I started that, like, let's say you just have a certain standard. You say, okay, this is how we greet people, or this is the sequence of service. These are ideas that you put it on a piece of paper, you train your staff, and that's it. You never have to look at it again. But every single standard that you set in hospitality, in my experience, you have to revisit it very, very often, and you have to remind. And then you have new people coming, and you have, obviously people leaving, people coming. That makes it quite challenging to do remotely. So that's also one of the reasons, like, for the last 9 years, we haven't opened 5 or 10 One Lifes, and we're quite kind of steady and slow in that expansion because it needs kind of myself or Kelvin to kind of be able to visit each of the stores quite frequently. So some people will say, oh, well, that doesn't sound like a very scalable business. I don't see us as businessmen. You know what I mean? I don't think a restaurateur is necessarily a businessman. I'd rather be in hospitality or be a restaurateur than be a businessman. Because, yeah, if I was a businessman, I'd be thinking, how do we open 50 of these in the next 5 years and make lots of money?
Yeah, I think that's a totally different goal. Like, if you want a revenue, yeah, you do like Starbucks. I mean, in general. If you want to change the industry, if it's like maybe even your hobby, because the way you're talking about it, it's your child, it's a living creature, and like, yeah, you evolve and develop together with it, and it's just a different approach. And we can't blame restaurateurs who want to act like businessmen. That's fine.
Yeah.
People want a revenue, but it's nice to have something else. Like when you have this diversity, and I mean, Dubai is still, it's moving there. I believe every year we have more and more concepts which are more or less like One Life, and let's hope we have more. how different is JVC from D3? Because when we say One Life, usually we mean D3. Almost everyone goes there.
Really? JVC is. I mean, you've been to the JVC
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Yeah. I love the JVC location. I think that, like I said, when we were looking at One Life D3, you kind of look at it as, okay, this is a match made in heaven for me. Like it fits perfectly. And that's mainly because I think it's a concept that appeals to creative people or creative type individuals, let's say. What surprised me about JVC is those kind of creative people are actually all over the city. They're not just in D3. Obviously, we're now in Alserkal recording here. They're here. But we put it there and it attracted a certain type of person. I would say the profile of the person it attracted in JVC is not massively different from the profile in D3. The main difference being in D3, the majority of our weekday customers work there. And obviously in JVC, they don't work in D3. I felt like One Life D3 is super casual. And what I love about JVC is it's even more casual. So you can look at like how many people are wearing shorts in our JVC branch. It'll always be more than our D3 branch because obviously D3 is a business district. But the vibe of the venues is quite different. Like JVC being quite small is, I think, really nice. And I think it would be really interesting to see like which branch people prefer. And I don't think it would be unanimous. I don't think everyone would say, oh, I prefer D3, or everyone would say, I prefer JVC. I feel like it might be where people got used to. So if you got used to the D3 branch, then you go to JVC, you might find it a bit weird or, oh, it's not the same, and vice versa. But what I love, or what gives me a lot of pleasure, is when I see the same person in JVC and then like 2 days later I'll see them in D3 and I'll be like, okay, cool. So like I'll see someone who lives in the same building in the Hive in JVC and then they come to D3 for a meeting or something and they come to One Life. I'm like, aren't you sick of One Life? Like you live in the same building as One Life and you still choose to come there in D3. So that gives me a lot of joy.
You've mentioned that you're going to open a new One Life in Alserkal soon. So why have you chosen this location? What can we expect?
So before D3 or around the same time, Alserkal was one of the locations that we wanted to open in. And for one reason or another, it didn't happen. We came back here in February 2023 for a Ugly Noodles pop-up. There was an Ugly Noodles pop-up just, I think, across from you here.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was me, Kelvin, and our colleague in marketing, Camilla. We came, we had the noodles, and then we walked around the avenue a bit. I hadn't been coming to Serkal frequently for maybe the last 3 or 4 years. But after that, I started coming here quite frequently. And it was purely a decision based on vibe, to be honest with you. Like I said, I'm not a businessman. I didn't maybe do a ton of analysis. But again, with the kind of creative community that Alserkal has and what One Life offers, for me, it felt like a match and it would be a cool place for us to be. Also, whenever I come here, I do see people that I know from One Life. And here again, it'll be a bit different. So each of our kind of locations is a little bit different. Here, it's actually going to be the Grow House by One Life. So we're planning to grow vegetables and have like a indoor farm in the space here. Here it won't be licensed, where obviously D3 is licensed. But apart from that, there'll be, a lot of similarities. The breakfast menu will probably be quite similar. The rest of the menu may or may not be similar. It'll also depend on what we're able to grow from the farm. So we partnered with a company called Let It Grow, or Grow, a guy called Amin. You might have seen him on Instagram or might even follow him. So he has like his own heirloom tomatoes and this kind of stuff. So that'll also influence the menu a bit. It'll be of a different vibe because we want to give people a different reason to go to each branch, not just based on, I was near D3, so I came here, or I was near JVC, so I went there. It's not a chain where it's like, oh, each branch is the exact same. You're going to experience the same thing. And here, I think what you'll experience is quite different to D3 and JVC.
Okay, cool. But there are so many rumors that at one point Alserkal is going to be licensed.
Well, if it is, then
I
yeah,
mean,
why not?
I think it's going to be such a game changer.
I honestly haven't heard those rumors. I'm hearing it from you for the first time, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, we've heard it a few times, and from like, I understand why it's not happening right now, but I think taking into consideration how many festivals and art events are happening here, we all know that art people love wine. Let's be
Yes.
honest. Okay, have you ever considered going to Abu Dhabi or maybe to some other countries in the Middle East?
I guess it's a question that comes up from time to time, but relating it back to physically being in these spaces and wanting to have a hands-on approach to management, it's much more challenging. I think for now, this project here is a big project for us to open in Alserkal. After that, we don't know what will happen. Maybe it'll be a different model, like maybe a different city or a different country wouldn't directly be managed by us. Indirectly or through a franchise model, I think it's possible. But I also have 3 kids now. So as I said, when I started, I had 1 son. Now I have 3 sons. And I do want to prioritize kind of spending time with them, spending more time with my family, being less under stress myself. And as much as, I love the whole process of kind of opening a new place, because you take an idea that's in your head and then you see it come to reality. It's extremely rewarding, but it's also extremely stressful and it puts a lot of financial pressure on yourself and the business. So I don't know. I don't know that I see us directly doing it, but indirectly it could be.
I really love how you describe your working routine, because I believe even if you do something that you truly love, you need to avoid being burned out, because your job, especially if you are passionate about it, it still needs to be fun.
Yeah.
You need to see real pleasure in it.
I mean, it's a real luxury. I think I experienced 9 years of not particularly enjoying my job. And by not particularly, I mean, I hated it. Like I just didn't enjoy it. Working in a corporate, the best thing about it is like the social side of it. Like you end up becoming friends with all your colleagues and you complain about the same things and the same people. But now I'm extremely lucky that, I don't feel like I'm going into work every day. In fact, it's the opposite. Like if I miss it, if I don't go to work, if I go on a holiday for like 3 weeks, I'm itching to kind of like get back into the routine of it. So I enjoy it. And like you said, you need to keep enjoying it, because if it gets to a point where it becomes just like your corporate job, that's not why I left that world. I didn't leave that world so I'd be under stress and pressure in this world.
Let's imagine there is someone right now listening to this podcast, sitting in a corporate office, hating his or her job and thinking, yeah, maybe I should quit and open a bar or a restaurant or coffee place. Which advice would you give them?
I would say success and failure is not binary, in the sense that, a lot of times with decisions that I've made here with One Life, people will say, did you do the right thing? For example, we expanded in 2019 from a smaller space to a bigger place. Did you do the right thing? Or we opened in JVC. Was it the right decision to open in JVC? I think the way we view decisions and success is a little bit flawed. So the first 6 months that we opened JVC, it was a very bad decision and it was a failure. But then we tweaked a few things and I would say it's as successful as our D3 branch, even though it's much smaller. So a success can turn into a failure can turn into a success. If you're sitting in your office now thinking about whether you should do it or not, don't be so afraid, because you can start and what you do in the beginning is not going to be great. Like I think it's almost guaranteed that whatever you do is not going to be great, and I don't think you'll make a lot of money. However, if you're smart enough to be introspective, look at your business, look at what you can tweak, I think you can change a failure into a success. And the most important thing is not running out of cash. If you run out of cash, then it becomes a failure. It becomes like, oh, well, you open the business, you close the business, it ran out of cash. That's not to say like constantly pump cash into a failing business. But I do think with any successful business, it didn't start as it is today. So someone took a decision at some point to change something for the better. And it's all a balance. Like in the end, any advice you give someone, there's a counterpoint, right? So I would say, listen to your customers. But I would also say, don't listen too much to your customers. It's about developing an instinct for what's good advice, what's bad advice, what's good feedback from customers, what's bad feedback from customers. Should you do what everyone else is doing or should you be original? Every decision you make, each side has kind of advantages and disadvantages. And the most important thing is for that individual to kind of be able to develop their own instincts about which way to take their business and not to be stuck to a certain thing. One Life started as a vending machine concept. We've never done a single vending machine since we started. One Life started as a place that did stews. Our USP was we do stews every day. So we had beef bourguignon, blah, 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 all these different stews. It didn't really work. We killed it at some point. We changed direction so many times, and most of the time it worked. And when it didn't work, we quit. And we said, okay, let's change it now into this direction. I think the fear is crippling when you're in that position. And it's fair. I mean, it's fair to be afraid. You might not be able to afford to lose everything. It's attractive to have a steady income and a steady job. And I was there, and I mean, even to this day, I'm earning less than I did in my last corporate job. So I get it, but I also think if you're not particularly money driven, you can build something bigger than kind of what you're doing today.
Thank you very much. I think it was motivating enough. If you're not money driven and if you're crazy enough, go join the hospitality
I mean, in
industry.
the end, you can still make more money than you did in your job. But I mean, in our case, we always reinvest back into One Life. So obviously, opening here, we'd rather borrow the least amount of money and put the most out of from the business. So in that sense, like, we're always reinvesting, and the net effect has been, yeah, for me personally, I make less today than I did in the corporate world. But money is also not everything. Like I was in that position where I saw people, my colleagues in my job, where, you know, every 2 years they get a new car, every 2 years this or that, you know, they have a couple of nice watches. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's their priorities. But that was never my priority. I mean, I'd rather kind of build something. I'm not too bothered about what car I drive.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was amazing.
Thank you so much, Sophia.